The following podcast is brought to you by the Johners Podcasting Network, found exclusively at WrestlingWithJohners.com.
And hello again, wrestling fans. Welcome to another edition of This Week in History. This week we're going to look at the week of October 8th through the 14th. And we have a lot of different events to go through. Some No Mercies. I believe there's at least a Fall Brawl probably in here. A bunch of birthdays and a whole bunch of other title changes and news for that time frame in the 7 days. So I want to thank you, whether you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, and listening to us on Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, anywhere else you get your podcasts from. We're part of the Ontario Independent Podcasting Network, and as you heard just a moment ago, part of the Johners Podcasting Network in the UK. Be sure to download the app, and you can get access to over 40 different channels of podcasting, different styles, different places around the world, all on the Johners Podcasting Network. So check us out, and you'll never be short on any podcasting shows, whether you're sitting at home or driving in the car on your way to work or school, wherever you're heading. You can always get some great podcasting from us there. Once again, I want to thank everybody for with Coolbet. Coolbet, stay cool but responsibly, as they sponsor all our shows. And want to hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving, or in the States, Columbus Day. But it's Thanksgiving weekend just passed, and I hope everybody enjoyed their time. And that brings us over to our co-host, Jonesy in Niagara Falls.
Good evening. Or afternoon.
Good afternoon. Yes, it's afternoon even when we're recording this. But yes, it's Thursday, 12 p.m. when this drops. So anytime after that, it is a great time to dive into the rich history of our great sport, to quote Tony Schiavone. How are you doing?
Pretty good. I will start with October 8th. I may signal to you when the intro, there's a little bit of popping. It just sounded like a record with a little bit of a scratch, but now it's gone. So anyways, we're going to continue. 43 years ago in Dallas, Texas, Evelyn Stevens defeated the Fabulous Moolah to win the NWA Women's World Championship. Evelyn's short 2 days back to Moolah reign is recognized by NWA, but not by the WWE. And we believe there's a reason for this. That championship was sold to the then WWF by Moolah in 1983. And you see this picture here of Evelyn Stevens. And you have that other picture you showed me?
Yeah, I do. It's interesting because this title change also happened.
Well, you sound like a Borg now talking.
Oh, okay. My apologies.
Just give us a second.
I don't know what's going on.
There we go. Now it sounds fine.
Issues. But yeah, looking up Evelyn, trying to get that picture that I first had up, it was interesting to see the police tape behind it. But then looking deep to find out what's going on, if it turns out Evelyn was not one of Moolah's girls, for starters. And the championship title change came because of Gary Hart, who was responsible for that event and went back to Moolah. But then in time, she ended up marrying another gentleman, and I'll bring this up, who apparently was in an abusive relationship and ended up killing her husband. I'm just going to take down the banner for a second. As it says here, Evelyn Jardine Rillage, sentenced to 20 years for fatally shooting Frank Rillage. They had a gym together and just an abusive relationship. A lot of people thought she was the aggressor in the whole thing, more so than anything. But yeah, crazy little world that she had after leaving wrestling and doing the gym gig there. And then I guess she's possibly been released from jail, but people aren't overly sure if she has, or if she's alive, or where she is. So her whereabouts is very up in the air, but kind of an interesting story with her post-wrestling career.
Absolutely crazy. Moving on, 30 years ago in Montgomery, Alabama, The York Foundation, Richard Morton and Thomas Rich and Terrence Taylor, defeated Big Josh, Dustin Rhodes, and Tom Z-Man Zink to win the WCW Six-Man Tag Team Championship. The trio would be the last six-man champions as the belts were abandoned a month later. And of course, that was a different, actually, Terrence Taylor, I'm thinking the football player there for a second, but
you're thinking Lawrence Taylor.
Lawrence Taylor, that's it.
Terrence Taylor was the Red Rooster, or Terry Taylor, also known as the infamous somewhat stooge to all the backstage information beginning to Dave Meltzer. It's been traced pretty much to him as being one of the main guys who ended up giving Meltzer information. And of course, this was a chance for Ricky Morton to become a heel and become Richard Morton and do that whole shtick. They had also VK Wall Street. Curtis Hughes was also a bodyguard for them, and all their managers' knowledge was coming from computer knowledge. And for those watching and looking at this, that is actually Terry Runnels, or Terry Boatwright, who was actually a makeup artist backstage for WCW before becoming the on-screen persona of Alexander York. She had her relationship with Dustin Rhodes at the time and was not very kindly taken to by Dustin's father, Dusty, which caused a lot of problems between Dustin and Dusty over time.
Probably all those cigars she smoked.
Well, that's when she started being Marlena in WWE with Goldust.
All right, moving on. 20 years ago on Raw from Indianapolis, Indiana, Stone Cold Steve Austin defeated Kurt Angle to win the WWF Championship for the 6th time. Also on the card, the Hardy Boys defeated Booker T and Test to win the WCW World Tag Team Championship. 16 years ago in Tokyo, Japan, Brock Lesnar defeated Kazuki Fujita, that's better, and Masashiro Chono in a three-way match to win the IWGP Heavyweight Championship.
Yeah, it's kind of a little bit of a surprise reading that because I don't know too many times that Japan, especially even in that time, were doing triple threat matches. They seem to stick traditionally to one-on-one matches.
Which I don't like, because I know the last 10 years or so, that's, for me, that's kind of what they're known for, is their triple threat matches.
Oh, good.
I mean, okay. I could be wrong, but that's what I think of when I think of a lot of the Japanese wrestling now, is they do a lot of triple threats.
Oh.
All right, 15 years ago, WWE presented No Mercy. The show featured the much-hyped debut of MVP. And also on the card, King Booker defeated Bobby Lashley Batista in Finley in a fatal four-way match to retain his World Heavyweight Championship.
Yeah, I'm actually getting through the recent episode of Bruce Pritchard's Something to Wrestle, and they're talking about all the lead up to No Mercy. I've gotten through that part, and I'm just getting to the actual card itself. But it's a good listen with Something to Wrestle, and able to go back in time to listen to what happened there.
It's amazing how much they remember. 14 years ago in Tokyo, Japan, Hiroshi Tanahashi defeated Yuji Nagata to win the IWGP Heavyweight Championship. 9 years ago, WWE Hall of Famer Tammy Lynn Snitch was arrested yet again and charged with violating a protective order, disorderly conduct, and criminal mischief after police were called to the home of her boyfriend, Damian Darling. This would be her fourth arrest in a month after being arrested on 3 consecutive days in September. She's not a dog. What are you talking about? She was released on a $25,000 bond and arrested again the next day on 1 count of third-degree burglary and 3 counts of violating a protective order. That's 5 arrests in about a month, and she gets another one in January.
Yeah, and she totaled up a few more since then being released. I think she's just recently been released a few months ago. And I saw a picture with her and DDP at a comic book convention or something like that. And he said that she seems to be doing better than before. So hopefully she's
Maybe
able to turn that.
DDP's got to take her in for a while.
Yeah, hopefully she can turn that corner if it means going to the accountability house that DDP has. All of us, like, for the most downloaded
You're a Borg again.
For the most downloaded woman in history for her image and being that high up on stuff, to fall from grace that hard, it's really sad to see.
Yeah, it is. And at least we get to see the good days still on tape. Some birthday or a birthday here. It's a happy 41st birthday to Michael Gregory Mizanian, or Mizan, aka The Miz. Today would have been the 55th birthday of Arthur Leon Barr, aka Art Barr. He was good friends with Rowdy Piper, was accused of rape back in '89 and took a plea deal. He would wrestle as Beetlejuice and finally got over as the American Love Machine. In EMLL in Mexico, his frog splash would be adopted by many wrestlers over the years, including Eddie Guerrero.
So just going back one spot to Mike Mizanin.
You're a Borg again.
Just to go back to Mike Mizanin's birthday, he is actually currently on Dancing with the Stars. And so let's see here how you can vote for him. It's going against Monday Night Raw, usually, but he can always still support him and go from there.
Thank you for that information, Sean Borg. October 9th, 39 years ago in Chicago, Nick Bockwinkel defeated Otto Wance to win the AWA World Heavyweight Championship. Nick would hold the title for the next 501 days before being defeated in Japan by Jumbo Tsuruta. 20 years ago at a SmackDown taping in Moline, Illinois, Billy Kidman defeated X-Pac to win the WCW Cruiserweight Championship. 19 years ago at an NWA TNA weekly pay-per-view taping in Nashville, Tennessee, Six-Pack defeats Kid Cash, Tony Malouk, Ace Steel, AJ Styles, Jose Maximo, and Joel Maximo in a ladder match to win the TNA X Division Championship.
Yeah, this was also the same episode where Mr. Perfect Kurt Hennig, or Mr. P. Kurt Hennig, made his debut on TNA.
He looks a little chunkier there.
Yeah, well, it was hard times for him.
Yeah, well. You're sounding a little better. When you talk, it goes a little weird, but when you don't, it's completely silent. Maybe it's the microphone. Who knows? 17 years ago in Tokyo, Japan, Kenzuki Sasaki defeated Kazuyuki Fujita to win the IWGP Heavyweight Championship. 16 years ago, WWE presented No Mercy from the Toyota Center in Houston, Texas. Chris Benoit defeated Booker T, Christian, and Orlando Jordan in a fatal four-way match to retain the WWE United States Championship. Randy Orton and Cowboy Bob Orton defeated The Undertaker in a handicap casket match. Juventud defeated Nunzio to win the WWE Cruiserweight Championship. And Batista defeated Eddie Guerrero to retain his World Heavyweight Championship. 15 years ago at an Impact taping, former WWE champion Kurt Angle would make his TNA debut and gets us into a stare down with Samoa Joe. Hey, it's a happy 40th birthday to Daniel Puder. Puder gained fame in 2004 during the $1 Million Tough Enough challenge and for putting Kurt Angle in a Kimura submission move.
Yeah, that was one of those oops moments where I guess Daniel actually did go shoot style and should not have done so, and there was a little bit of heat between them backstage after the fact.
Well, yeah, and you know what? Daniel Puder deserved to get fired for whatever reason that he did it. You basically blindsided him with doing that. If it was, he knew, if Angle knew it was coming, it probably would have been a different story. It's a happy 89th birthday to the godfather of grappling, Ivan Jean LaBelle. The LaBelle Lock, of course, is named after him. And it's a happy 50th birthday to Michael Stephen Manna, a.k.a. Stevie Richards. The well-traveled Philadelphian has wrestled for every major organization and a few notable independents in the country, most notably ECW, WCW, WWF, and E, TNA, Shakira, and Ring of Honor. Richards has held the WWF E Hardcore Championship 21 times.
Yeah, and also since leaving major spotlights of wrestling, WWE and TNA, he's gone on to get his sort of certification of being a trainer in DDPY.
Cool. So he's still around. That's good. Good to hear. Moving on to October 10th, 22 years ago, Heroes of Wrestling featured wrestling stars from the 80s and 90s from the Casino Magic Complex in Bay Street, Louisiana, Mississippi, St. Louis, Mississippi. About 2,300 were in attendance, and only 29,000 homes watched on pay-per-view. 40,000 pay-per-view buys were needed for them to break even. The show featured terrible matches, with perhaps the exception of the build-up, and the Blanchard Stan Lane match was fairly decent. Abdul the Butcher and one-man gang fought to a double countout. The main event was a beauty and is remembered for, of course, Jake the Snake Roberts. Jim Neidhart and King Kong Bundy would defeat Jake Roberts and Yokozuna. The match started as Roberts versus Neidhart, but because of Jake the Snake being a little bit tipsy, Bundy and Yokozuna were added. And of course, they joined in the tag match, and they needed some babysitters for Jake the Snake Roberts, who treated the crowd to a sex show with his snake.
Yeah, that's quite the train wreck. Most of the whole event was a train wreck. If you happen to check out our Facebook page on Sunday, around 9 o'clock-ish, and you probably can just go back on our history of our wall, you can find a version of it from YouTube that I put up during that show. I think for some reason I stupidly bought this pay-per-view and have a copy of it on video in some dark realm of this world.
Hey, if you still have that one should be a keeper, and we know a few people that can actually transfer that over to digital. They would actually probably love to see that and see the old commercials that would have been in it and all that.
Exactly, that's what I was thinking. I
think we split on that pay-per-view, if I remember.
Yeah, if I do find that copy of the pay-per-view, I'm switching over to digital because it's probably going to be a better copy than what is on YouTube. But if you like train wrecks, go back on our Facebook page and you can find the train wreck known as Heroes of Wrestling.
All right. Your voice is a little better. It comes and goes. Maybe with your movement, I'm not sure, but it's clear, and then it goes back to the board. But I can still understand you, so hang in with us there. We're going on now. 15 years ago, Dion, oh God, I don't even know how to say that name. Anyway, Psychosis was arrested for allegedly stealing a car from a 23-year-old man in Baja, California. He used a toy gun to steal the car, got in a high-speed chase hitting several vehicles, including one with an 18-year-old pregnant woman. Torres would be released from WWE shortly after the incident. Really, a gun? Why didn't he just jump off a car, land on the guy's shoulders, and give him a hurricanrana right into another car, and then take his car? That would have been, I think, a lot better.
Probably would have been fun.
Yes. 15 years ago at a SmackDown taping, Chris Benoit would go on to defeat Mr. Kennedy to win the WWE United States Championship. 11 years ago, TNA presented Bound for Glory from the Ocean Center in Daytona Beach, Florida. Tara defeated Angelina Love, Velvet Sky, and Madison Rayne in a Four Corners match to win the TNA Knockouts Championship. Rob Van Dam would defeat Abyss in a Monsters Ball match. Jeff Hardy defeated Kurt Angle and Mr. Anderson in a three-way match to win the vacated TNA World Heavyweight Championship. And as a result of Angle's loss, he had to retire from wrestling, which, of course, it didn't stick. And today would have been the 75th birthday of Martin Austin Ruan, a.k.a. Giant Haystacks. He was no relation to Haystacks Calhoun. Born 14 pounds. Just to let you know, there's a lot of interference now. He was born 14 pounds, 6 ounces in Camberwell, and the disturbance is now gone. He worked as a laborer and nightclub bouncer before trying his hand at wrestling at the suggestion of a friend. Beginning his career on the British wrestling circuit in 1967, he was named after American wrestling star William Haystacks Calhoun. He would form a tag team with Shirley Big Daddy Crabtree. In 1975, his future feud with Big Daddy would draw high ratings from the ITV in Britain. Haystacks refused to wrestle on Sundays due to being a devoted Roman Catholic. Ruan, who stood 6'11" and weighed 685 pounds at his heaviest, would wrestle also for Stampede Wrestling in Canada, the Catch Wrestling Association in Germany and Austria, and World Championship Wrestling in the United States as Loch Ness. He was briefly a member of the Dungeon of Doom, but following a cancer diagnosis, Ruan returned to England and lived out the remainder of his days there. After a lengthy battle with cancer, he would die in his home in Prestwich, England on November 29th, 1998, and he was 52. Just to kind of go by weight here, Giant Haystacks was 685 pounds. Viscera, who was a very large man, was only 487 pounds.
Yeah, I didn't see him as Haystacks or Giant Haystacks, but I did remember him as Loch Ness in WCW.
A lot of interference, to let you know. And from now on, I'm going to just do this, the John Cena thing, so you can see that there is some interference. Anyways, October 11th, 44 years ago in Memphis, Tennessee, Bill Dundee and Jerry Lawler won the AWA tag belts, defeating Soldat Ustinov and Doug Summers, who was substituting for Boris Zukov that night because he was Zukov was on his way to the WWF. 43 years ago in Tokyo, Japan, the Crush Gals, Linus Asuka and Shigatsuya Nagao, defeated Bull Nakano and Condor Sato to win the AJW Best Tag Team League. 25 years ago in Osaka, Japan, Ultimo Dragon defeated the Great Suzuki to win the J Crown Championship. God, gotta love those masks. 22 years ago in Tokyo, Japan, Jushin Thunder Liger defeated Kendo Kashin to win the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship for a 10th time. 16 years ago, at a TNA Impact taping, America's Most Wanted, Chris Harris and James Storm, defeated the Naturals, Andy Douglas and Chase Stevens, to win the NWA World Tag Team Championship. 11 years ago, at a TNA Impact taping, Madison Rayne defeated Tara to win the TNA Knockouts Championship. Of note, only 6 minutes of wrestling was actually shown during the 2-hour show. Most of the time was sucked up by the formation of Immortal and Nash and Sting leaving TNA. Nash would show up at the WWE Royal Rumble the next year, while Sting would return to TNA after negotiations with WWE failed. 11 years ago at a SmackDown taping in Dallas, Texas, Randy Orton wins the largest WWE Battle Royal to date at 41 participants. Orton won a WWE Championship later in the show. Orton would win by DQ against then-champ Mark Henry. And it's a happy 33rd birthday for Trevor Mann, a.k.a. Ricochet. He has worked as Helios and Shakira and Lucha Underground's first champion, winning the Aztec Cup as Prince Puma.
Yeah, he just recently got traded over to SmackDown, so I'm seeing some good things.
Unfortunately, I can barely hear you at the moment. We will continue. October 12th, 35 years ago in Dallas, Texas, Kevin Von Erich defeated Black Bart to win the WCCW World Heavyweight Championship. 32 years ago, James Coco Beware and the WWF executive Jim Troy were involved in a physical altercation while on their European tour. Ware was fired immediately following their altercation, which saw him tackle Troy through a plate glass window. Later, it was found that Troy was the instigator after he used racial slurs during an argument. Troy would eventually be re-signed from the company and James rehired. Unfortunately, the original bird of Coco Beware, Frankie, was murdered and eaten. But, of course, they found another replacement. 29 years ago in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Canada, Bret Hart defeated Ric Flair to win the WWF Championship. Hart was the first man to win the WWF's top prize at an untelevised event since Hulk Hogan did it in 1984. It would happen again when Diesel did it in 94. And of course, it's happened several times since then.
Yeah, it was one of those rare moments that
you sound wonderful now.
Yeah, I have no idea what's going on. It's one of those days, and the dog is also having a little temper tantrum with me as well. But yeah, with Bret winning the title, it was definitely a unique thing to happen. They did record it for a video that was released by WWE on Coliseum Home Video. Yeah, I think they just needed to transition out of the whole Hulk Hogan thing, and I believe they were just getting out of the steroid trials when this was happening. So they needed to have smaller champions compared to the hulking, no pun intended, beasts that were there with just muscle bound and kind of looking like there was something going on.
Yeah, I think it took a little bit for people to get used to smaller champions, but the main event matches definitely were better quality. Maybe the hype wasn't as special because for some reason everyone loved Hulk Hogan and guys like that, and the guys like Bret, who were very talented, were always kind of stuck in the middle. But between Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels, they, of course, opened the door for a lot of people.
Yeah, and before that, those guys were only getting the Intercontinental Championship, and that was considered the workers' belt, where you get quality matches out of the IC division.
Mm-hmm. 23 years ago on Nitro in Chicago, Illinois, Sting and the Warrior defeated Bret Hart and Hollywood Hogan via DQ. This would be Warrior's last free televised match in WCW. He would wrestle just once more for WCW, the infamous Hogan-Warrior rematch at Halloween Havoc a couple weeks later, which is one of my favorite matches to watch because it's just so terrible. Over on Raw is War from Uniondale, New York. Ken Shamrock would defeat X-Pac to win the vacated WWF Intercontinental Championship.
Yeah, just going back to these two shows, over on Nitro, they had also an appearance by Chucky, and I believe that was in a segment with the Dogface Gremlin, Rick Steiner. Rick and Gene were in the ring when Chucky interfered and interrupted. And then to see that on Nitro, it was the Blade Runners, Warrior and Sting together against Hogan and Austin, Hart, who were kind of the top guys there. and you could flip over, and the counter to that main event were the Brothers of Destruction versus Austin and Rock, the two top guys there. So they totally loaded up their both shows with tag team power, at least name recognition, not necessarily quality of match, but to see the contrast in both were tag teams matches and stuff like that. Plus, it was also the night that Steve Austin showed up with a cement truck and put cement in Vince McMahon's Corvette. And that Corvette actually made it to Access for WrestleMania 18 in Toronto, and I got to see that.
And was it still
full of cement?
Sorry?
Full of cement. It was all dried up and just plopped down in there.
So they didn't use any oatmeal in there. It was 100% quality cement.
Yep.
All right. We're going on now. 17 years ago at a TNA, I might have skipped something here. Yes, I did. I think 21 years ago. Where am I here? You got, where am
21 years ago, SmackDown taping WWF Tag Team titles with Gene Chance for the 11th time since that year's WrestleMania. The Rock and Sock Connection, Mankind, and The Rock would defeat the New Age Outlaws to win the WWF Tag Team Championships. Also on the card was the Big Boss Man defeating Al Snow and the Big Show in a triple threat match for the WWF Hardcore Championship.
Well done. 17 years ago at a TNA Impact taping, Team Canada's Bobby Roode and Eric Young defeated Christopher Daniels and James Storm to win the NWA World Tag Team Championship. Sorry, go ahead.
I couldn't find a picture of that, but I did find the picture more recently of them about a year or so ago backstage at WWE working together.
Nice. 13 years ago, The Wrestler makes its United States premiere at the New York Film Festival. Though the movie just made $44 million at the box office, it would earn many honors, including the Golden Lion at the Venice Film Festival, an Academy Award nomination for Mickey Rourke, and an Oscar for Marissa Tomei.
Yeah, Ernest the Cat Miller was actually in the final battle of Randy the Ram, and they filmed it during a Ring of Honor show. Mm-hmm. So you can see the Ring of Honor banners and all that there.
Yeah, the a lot of the matches that they did that they showed in the movie were done at actual shows, just like when Randy the Ram took on oh man, his name escapes me now.
Ernest Miller?
No, the white guy with the beard.
That narrows it down to about half the roster.
I can't think of his name right now.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
How embarrassing! They had the hardcore match with the staples and all that.
Okay.
Unfortunately, his name is escaping me, and I apologize.
Yep. And then the thing is, they were going to use this as a vehicle for Jericho against Mickey Rourke, but then somehow either money got in the way or Mickey Rourke's being Mickey Rourke got in the way, gave away the fact that they were supposed to face each other at Mania, and also then pulled out of it, which caused him to just sit at ringside. And Jericho took on 3 WrestleMania legends in, was it Piper Snuka and Valentine? No, Ricky Steamboat.
Yes. And hey, everyone still got to see Mickey Rourke, and it relaunched Ricky Steamboat as holy shit, he still's got it.
True.
All right, moving on. 13 years ago, TNA presented Bound for Glory 4. Beer Money Inc. Defeated Abyss and Matt Morgan. Team 3D and the Latin American Exchange in a 4-team Monsters Ball match to retain the TNA World Tag Team Championship. And Steve Mongo McMichael was the special referee. Unfortunately, we got the bad sounds back again. Jeff Jarrett defeated Kurt Angle. Mick Foley was the special enforcer. Sting defeated Samoa Joe and to win the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. definitely now sounds like an old Atari game. Waka, 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 waka. 12 years ago on Raw from Indianapolis, Indiana, Julian Hall defeated Mickie James in just 76 seconds to win the WWE Divas Championship. Then it was hot potato time as she would lose the title less than 5 minutes later when guest host Nancy O'Dell orders a match against the returning Melina, and Melina would defeat Jillian in just 26 seconds to win the Divas Championship. That's a nice belly button. October 13th. 46 years ago in New York City, Bruno Sammartino fought to a draw with Ivan Koloff for the WWF Championship when both men were deemed unable to continue due to excessive bleeding. 40 years ago in Allentown, Pennsylvania, Mr. Fuji and Mr. Sato defeated Tony Garea and Rick Martel to win the WWF Tag Team Championship. 36 years ago in Charlotte, Ivan and Nikita Koloff defeated the Rock and Roll Express, Ricky Morton, and Robert Gibson to win the NWA World Tag Team Championship. 29 years ago at a wrestling challenge taping in Regina, Saskatchewan, Canada, Money Inc., DiBiase, and IRS defeated the Natural Disasters, Typhoon, and Earthquake to win the WWF Tag Team Championship. 24 years ago on Nitro from Tampa, Florida, the Steiner brothers defeated Scott and Six, who was substituting for Kevin Nash, to win the WCW World Tag Team Championship. And 15 years ago, The Marine, starring John Cena, opens in theaters and at the time was the most successful film from WWE Studios. It made its budget back plus a couple bucks until The Call in 2013.
Yeah, I think we went and saw that, didn't we?
Which? The Call?
No, The Marine.
I did not see it in theaters. You must have gone with someone else. I know I've seen a little bit of it.
It happens. It was a little hokey, but all good.
All right, and we got bad interference, and now it's gone. Oh, it's back. Okay, today would have been the 95th birthday of Edward Spudnik, best known to wrestling fans as Killer Kowalski. He was born to Polish immigrants in Windsor, Ontario, Canada. Kowalski majored in electrical engineering in college and worked at the Ford plant in Detroit to help pay his way. And he got paid $50 a week way back then. He began a career as Tarzan Kowalski in 1947, but also wrestled as Hercules Kowalski, the Polish Apollo, and Killer Kowalski. And of course, the one that stuck, he even legally would change his name to Walter Kowalski in 1963. Kowalski's earliest recorded match was in May of 48, and by the end of the year, he was taking on Orville Brown for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. He trained many now famous wrestlers and went into the WWE Hall of Fame in 2003 and passed away at the age of 81. All right, October 14th, the last day of our journey. 32 years ago in Providence, Rhode Island, Tito Santana defeated Rick Martel to win the 1989 King of the Ring tournament. 19 years ago on Raw from Montreal, Chris Jericho and Christian would defeat the Hurricane and Kane to capture the WWE World Tag Team Championship. 15 years ago at ZZW, Last Team Standing from Philly, the Kings of Wrestling, Chris Hero and Claudio Castagnino, defeated the H8 Club, Hate Club, Justin Payne and Human Tornado, substituting for Nick Gage, to win the ZZW World Tag Team Championship. And at the time of their win, the duo also held the tag team titles in Shakira and Ring of Honor. 14 years ago, TNA presented Bound for Glory. Some of the matches on that card, AJ Styles and Tomko defeated Truth and Consequences, being Ron Killings and Consequences Creed to win the TNA World Tag Team belts. The Steiner brothers defeated Team 3D in a 2 out of 3 tables match. Gail Kim, in a gauntlet battle royal match with 8 other participants, defeated Roxy Laveau last to become the first TNA Knockouts champion. And Sting defeated Kurt Angle to win the TNA World Belt. 10 years ago, WWE SmackDown surpasses Gunsmoke for the second most episodes by a weekly episodic television series ever with 624. And now I do believe they are behind Raw as the 1 and 2 for the most episodes by a weekly episodic television series. Though I'd have to say that it's got to be for like nighttime or something like that, because I don't know how they don't include the soap operas. So that must be for daytime.
That's because they're saying weekly episodic. So it's 1 episode each week, as opposed to daytime TV, which is 5 days a week shows. So that would take out your things like
I see.
soap operas and game shows. They take a break. Soap operas go all the way through, but yeah.
Soap operas never take a break?
No.
Wow. That's impressive. I'm pretty sure General Hospital. Oh, actually, no, it's probably that England one that holds the record, I would say.
Probably.
Anyways, that's a different podcast. 8 years ago on Raw, Cody Rhodes and Goldust defeated The Shield, Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins to win the WWE Tag Team Championship belts. That's it for this week in wrestling history, which is compiled from the vast land of Google, Wikipedia, CageSideSeats.com, and most importantly from fans and journalists that had front row seats to history. And, of course, a big thank you to our sponsor, Coolbet, coolbet.com, and sportsbook betting and casino games. Stay cool and bet responsibly.
So I'm having a feeling that now that things are a little bit better, I needed to totally shut down and come back in to correct everything. So just an apology to those who stuck with us throughout this episode and put up with the poor audio and unfortunately the inconsistency with the pictures changing, because trying to correct things here. But yeah, definitely hope you can join us next week, where we're going to look at October 15th through the 20th, and we'll get more in depth in the world of wrestling and the rich history of our great sport.
And I didn't mind that the pictures didn't change, because they were stuck on the 3 lovely ladies there for a while. So that was nice. And then all of a sudden it changed to Boris Rudolph. And all right. Well, thank you as always for getting all those pictures. We both spend a lot of time putting this together, and we enjoy it. And we're coming up close to done this for a year, so there will be a format change. And of course, if you have any thoughts on what you would like to hear, focus more on, yada, 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 let us know.
Yeah, as part of that format change, do have my collection of WWE magazines, so where you can look back at the pages of WWE magazine, just like how Craig DeGeorge would do. And so we'll do that. Maybe brighter spotlight on some of the talent that are having birthdays or dearly departed. Plus, maybe a deeper dive into some of the events, as opposed to just skipping through them with highlights. So that's some of the ideas that we have with changing the format around a bit once we've reached our year, because if not, might as well just stop. But I think if we dig deeper into some things, I have another idea that's percolating at the moment. So we'll see what happens when we reach episode number 53 of This Week in History, and where things change from there. But thank you, everybody, for joining us. we are looking for a couple of people to join us for Fantasy Warfare Tournament. I need to record one in time for a ALS charity show in 2 weeks on the 24th. So if you're interested in being part of a Fantasy Warfare Tournament, that would be wonderful. Contact me at scumbagswrestling@gmail.com or at our Facebook page and be part of one of our shows. So until next time, we wish you a great week, and we'll see you on our next edition of This Week in History.